Hi guys, I'm here today with Kate, one of my friends, and a coach who works with emotional eating with sensitive people. Kate, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, Nadya. I am an emotional eating coach for sensitive souls, as you mentioned. And to give you a little bit of background on how I came into this profession and a little bit of my story. So, disconnection for me from my body started at an early age. I was disconnected from the world for as long as I can remember. It often overwhelmed me, so being alone felt a lot safer. And by the time high school rolled around, that disconnection from the world transmuted to a disconnection from my body, which was far more excruciating. It left me really alone and really confused. I started to get this curvy body out of nowhere and felt really uncomfortable in it. So I left it about a decade, and I became obsessed with the ideal thin, skinny way that we as women in this society are supposed to look. And it was my every waking thought. I did everything that I could to try and get rid of my curves. And I think it started with restriction. I restricted my diet, and that kind of transformed into binging and just a decade of being obsessed with trying to be thin, and my eating habits were all over the place. And I think rock bottom came after I graduated college, and I had been stuck in this pattern for a while, and I decided to see a coach, and my coach mentioned the highly sensitive person and that I kind of fell on that spectrum. And when she brought this up, it was an aha moment for me. I started researching everything that I could on being sensitive and how that correlated to overeating. And it helped me reframe, the past decade of struggling. So I found that a lot of emotional eaters also fall on the sensitive spectrum, meaning that they're overwhelmed by the world and that they use food to kind of ground themselves. Mm-hmm. And this isn't something that's specific to me or a few other people. There's a very high correlation of people out there who have this type of behavior. So that's kind of how I got started to where I am now as a coach. And yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, that's a great story, and I agree that there's so many people who use food to ground themselves just because they feel so ungrounded and spacey. So thanks for sharing that. Besides working with a coach, when did that deep recognition came that feeling overwhelmed was what caused the overeating?
So I think when I started to do a little bit of research on it, it kind of triggered this reframing of looking at my life. For so long, I felt completely crazy. Why couldn't I be normal? Why couldn't I figure this out? I had done so much research on nutrition and the mind-body connection and meditation, and I had tried everything, and I still couldn't so-called fix myself. So when I began to reframe my life as being sensitive, from even my childhood, I kind of danced on the outskirts of life and always felt a need to feel safe, and because I was constantly overwhelmed and constantly anxious. And when I began to reframe it and kind of look at each stage of life, it was I was using food as a safety net because I didn't feel safe in the world. And that reframing allowed me to learn ways of feeling safe without using food. And that's when my food addiction, food, thoughts started to fade into the background. And I really began to start healing on a deep level.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of us have those realizations, whether from reading a book or from thinking and just reflecting on our own. But not a lot of us take action. We kind of get stuck in this. Well, I know, but what's the next step? What was the first step for you to move from knowing into taking action?
That's a good question. I think that there's so many of us who logically do want to stop doing a behavior or start doing a behavior, whether it's stopping emotional eating or starting to work out or living a healthier life. We can't get past that step. We, like you said, get stuck. And I think it's because on a subconscious level, there's something that's holding us back. And until I really started to work with somebody who could help me see what the barriers were that were holding me back, I kept getting stuck, because we logically know things. We just can't get through them without seeing what's on a deeper level. And that was a coach for me.
So the coach was your point of transformation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's so much shame around emotional eating in general that just openly talking about it and speaking freely about something that had been a secret my whole life was this giant weight lifted. So definitely talking to a coach and just being more open in general about it.
So, well, since we do, all of us live in such a high stress environment with so many things happening at once, huge to-do list, subways, huge crowds. What is the way to find something that would help you stop feeling overwhelmed? What were the steps that you took to move away from feeling overwhelmed into feeling calm and relaxed?
Well, there's lots of layers to it, but I think, and I know that you teach this too, I think it all starts with the breath. And if you're listening and you've heard that before, try and listen with fresh ears because it really is, it changes everything. I found that for a lot of highly sensitive people, emotional eaters alike, we often breathe from our chest, so we're not getting enough oxygen to our brain. So when we actually, I had to learn to breathe again, actually breathe from a much deeper part of me. And when you're breathing, you come back to the moment. So there's no chance for you to be spinning and whirling and analyzing and thinking about what to eat and thinking about all the things that are overwhelming you. You're forced to come back to right here, right now. So I think breathing, if you can, find a few minutes to just slow down and breathe, that's the most helpful.
Was there a particular time of the day that you would do it? Was it connected to food?
All of the above. So I had to wake up and remind myself to start breathing as soon as I woke up because my mind would go immediately as soon as I cracked open my eyes. The anxiety, what I was planning to eat for the day. So I had to remind myself to breathe and get into my body from the moment I woke up. And I started to, in the beginning, set an alarm on my phone as a reminder for morning, afternoon, and evening. When the alarm would go off, I would take a minute to breathe and come back, and definitely before eating, because I find that for most of us emotional eaters, we're shoving food in our mouth as fast as we can, and we're in this stress mode. So when we're not breathing and we're eating, there's no blood around our digestive organs. It just turns into a whole mess. So definitely breathing before eating, very important.
Was there something else besides breathing that you found very helpful to stop overeating? For example, right in the process of eating?
Yeah. There's a technique called grounding. And I find that it's really helpful for the majority of people who live up here. It's a way for us to come back down into our bodies. So grounding looks like as you're eating and you get the urge to eat faster, or you're planning the next thing you're going to eat, really to focus on your feet on the ground and your bottom on the seat, and just really coming back into your body and sending all of the thoughts that are whirling around like down through your feet, and paying attention to your body. Anything that you can do to get from here to here, so important. So grounding is a good, helpful technique.
Another thing that I think a lot of us strive for perfection. We think that once you learn a technique, then you're supposed to get perfect at it, and the problem is never ever going to arise. You learn breathing, and then you suddenly become a mindful eater overnight. Or you learn grounding, and now you're all grounded all the time. Was this the way it happened for you?
I definitely became perfectionism person about learning to breathe and learning to ground myself, but I think it's not about perfection, and it's not about getting somewhere. It's about the process, and it's about the journey. And it's not about trying to fix yourself, because I feel like a lot of us in this realm who are in the process of healing can become almost addicted to self-help. Like we never can be good enough. We never can feel good enough. We can never, be healthy enough. But it's a matter of being enough, being okay with where you're at, because that's the only way you're going to get to the next place. So just, wherever anybody is who's watching this right now, if you're at the beginning of the healing journey, if you know what grounding means, if you know what breathing means, just be okay with wherever you are. I think that's most important.
Was there anything else besides grounding and breathing that was significant that you would advise women who are just the beginning of the journey to do, or you think those two are the main first steps?
Well, there's so many steps, but I think
let's do three. So let's do one more.
One more, okay. I think that we're starved for pleasure as people who have been restricting themselves around food and restricting themselves from the world, kind of just removing themselves from the world. We're absolutely starved for pleasure. So making pleasure a focus of your day rather than I need to do X, Y, and Z, really starting your day and doing something pleasurable first, making the day about you, whatever that looks like, because when you start to make yourself valuable, you're no longer something that needs to be fixed. You're now the focus of your universe, and that's really important. So I think breathing, grounding, and pleasure are the top three.
I like them.
Starting points.
Yeah, I think those are really, really important. I totally agree with you about breath. Fully breathing, it's incredibly helpful. And pleasure, I think a lot of women actually feel guilty. They feel like they're being very selfish by taking time from the day to take care about themselves, not just running around and getting stuff done. But it's so, so important. Because it just lets you get back to you. So I totally agree with the top three on your list.
Yeah, what's best for you is best for everyone. But yeah. I totally identify with the selfishness, but it's true. It's absolutely true.
Cool. So if women feel like they are that sensitive soul person who really reacts to the world in a more sensitive way, and they want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
Sorry, you froze up for a second there. So
Oh,
you were
sorry.
saying if you're that sensitive soul who feels overwhelmed?
Yeah, so if people want to find you, where do they find you? And just where do they go to connect with you?
Yeah, so they can find me at katestefans.com. I love blogging about emotional eating and being sensitive. It's my favorite thing to write about. So you can come find me there. I do offer a coaching program. And I'm moving to Vermont at the first of the year. So I will be physically in Vermont, but you can reach me through my site and connect with me there. I'd love to hear from you. And you're not alone if you're struggling.
Cool. Yeah, that's very helpful. And do guys check out Kate's website. It's full of resources.
Thank you so much, Nadya. I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing it.
Yes, and thank you for everything that you do. I talk about full of resources. Your website is almost overwhelming in the amount of stuff it has there.
Yeah.
So thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.